We have with us Professor Chinna Basavaya, Honorary Director, ICSSR Southern Region Center with us. He is also the conference co-chair. Before I hand over the dais to him, mic to him, I have the privilege in introducing him. Professor Chinna Basavaya is Honorary Director, holds a PhD in Political Science from the Usmania University, Hyderabad. Presently, he is the professor with the Department of Political Science, OU, and also holds a position as Honorary Director in the Indian Council of Social Science Research, Southern Region Center, Hyderabad. And he has served as a Joint Director, Directorate of Admissions, Usmania University, Joint Director, Advanced Center for American Studies, Usmania University, and also acted as an editor for the OUCIP Journal on International Studies. His areas of interest include international relations and public policy studies, with special reference to nuclear politics, renewable energy, and energy security. To cite one of his important contribution in this area, he's presented a paper at the Atomic and Hydrogen Bombs Conference organized by the Japanese Council in Japan in 2004, which has been one of the highest cited papers, and the paper titled No More Uranium Mining and No More Hibakusha, which was presented at the conference, has been cited very highly. So I request sir to brief about the conference and also throw some light on what Dr. Janaki has said regarding the program in making it successful. Sir.
Respected Presidium, Professor Misraji, Professor Deshpande, Professor Anglu, and dignitaries in the dais and half the dais, my colleagues from Usmania University, colleagues from Institute of Public Enterprise, students from all over South India and other parts of India, ladies and gentlemen. And though the process of initiated in the month of January, and this event has history of couple of years. So what I try to do is I would try to present that history, because history is very important. Professor Anglo is here. Now, as you all know, that the primary objective of ICSSR is to promote research and development of social sciences in India. It is with this endeavor to promote its activities, the ICSSR National Office at New Delhi had established 6 regional centers across India. The Southern Region Center is one among them. The jurisdiction of Southern Region Center extends to the states of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Union Territories of Puducherry and Lakshadweep. Usmania University is privileged to host the headquarters of Southern Region Center on its campus. The main objectives of regional centers of ICSSR include the promotion of social science research by bringing closer the social scientists in the region and serve as a link between the social scientists of the region and national and international communities of social scientists. So all the regional centers are doing this kind of work over a period of time. The other important objective of the regional center is to apprise the ICSSR New Delhi office on the issues and challenges being faced by the social science research in different regions of the country. It is with this objective that some of the regional centers are conducting the regional social science congresses. For example, the Northern Regional Center so far conducted 6 such conferences. The purpose of conducting regional congress is to deliberate upon the various issues of various issues relating to the social sciences research and social science development, and devise strategies for the promotion of social science research in respective regions. Taking cue from the initiatives of the Northern Regional Center, the then Honorary Director of the Southern Region Center, late Professor G. Krishna Reddy, had proposed the idea to conduct the first Southern Region Social Science Congress before the advisory committee meeting held in September 2015, in which 2 advisory committee members, Professor R.K. Mishra, Professor R. Deshpande, was present. So the objectives emphasized include to take stock of the current status of the social science research in Southern region by bringing together the academicians, researchers, and other stakeholders to one platform. Within 2 months of the proposal got approved by the advisory committee. In November 2015, a proposal was sent to the national office seeking the grants to organize first Southern Social Science Congress. After 4 months of sending the proposal, the Southern Regional Center got the approval of the national office in March 2016. But SRC could not succeed in getting the sufficient grants to conduct the Congress on its own. Later, in the month of June 2016, Professor G. Krishna Reddy passed away. In fact, it was a sudden death. After I had assumed the office in July 2016, I looked through the files and I thought that it would be impossible with that, minimum funds to conduct the Congress on my own. And besides the funds, we do not have the personnel. We have only 2 academics at the regional level center, myself, and we have another consultant, Dr. Jacob Kalle. So what I did was that I proposed the, our inability, at the same time sought the cooperation from the other ICSSR institutions which are there in the Hyderabad city, and I made a proposal at the next advisory committee in which both Professor Mishra, Professor Kalpana Kannabiran, Professor Deshpande was present, and immediately, without any kind of hesitation, Professor R.K. Mishra has understood the problem. He has come forward to help us, and in fact he has taken the whole burden on his shoulders. So this is how the advisory committee in principle agreed. In the next month, in December 2016, a formal meeting was organized at the IPE to discuss the issues. And within short span, in January of this year, everything got finalized from both the sides, Southern Region Center and IPE, with the active collaboration and cooperation and the hard-working team which Professor Mishra has. Dr. C.H. Lakshmi and Janaki and all other team, they were excellent. Actually, I should say that, they are excellent in terms of dealing with the multitasking works. I have seen them since last, 2-3 months, the way they are working. In fact, I told them that I have never seen Brahma with the 3 heads, and these people have maybe many heads, and, simultaneously doing many things. So with this excellent team, certainly Professor Mishra would progress and take forward the IPE. So after this meeting, and immediately I have returned to the Delhi office and sought the approval for the collaboration with IPE, and they have accepted, and the work had begun immediately. Thus, it has taken almost couple of years for the idea to materialize within the, with the consistent efforts of the SRC team and IPE team. I hope that the Congress, through its proceedings, would engage in a fruitful discussion on the new paradigms, issues and challenges around the social science research in India in general, Southern region in particular, and devise strategies to promote quality social science research in India that widens and deepens our knowledge towards sustainable and prospective future. So with these words, I would like to end my speech. I would like to thank once again Professor Mishra and his team for accepting our proposal and taking forward this task. Thank you very much.
Indeed, it's a great privilege that we have heard some good note on our faculty working. At IPE, under the leadership of Professor Mishra, we have been trained to take multitask, and we have been working on such occasions in a short time. So thank you very much, sir. We are very privileged to have with us Dr. Reena Marwa with us. She has been associated with Indian Council of Social Science Research as a senior consultant since 2012. She is a recipient of the Robert McNamara Fellowship of the World Bank, an Asia Fellow of the Asian Scholarship Foundation, and a short-term consultant of the World Bank and UN Women South Asia Regional Organization. She has published several articles in journals of repute and developed course materials on gender issues for the UGC and IGNOU. She is the founding editor of the biannual journal of the Asian Studies titled Millennial Asia, published by Sage Publishers, a teaching fraternity in Jesus Mary College, Delhi University. We are extremely happy, ma'am, you are in our midst today. I request ma'am to throw some light on the challenges of social science research in India.
Thank you very much, Professor Mishra. I'm really honored to be here in the midst of a galaxy of very, very well-known scholars and social scientists of tremendous eminence in India and abroad. I'm also very pleased to meet our friends from Nepal and Bangladesh, both countries, in fact, which have done better than India as far as happiness is concerned. So despite your several problems which you face, and of course Bangladesh and Nepal have been very close to India. Having been associated with ICSSR, I can say that over the last 4 years, ICSSR has in fact been supported substantially by IDRC in taking forward the entire concept and issues around the status of social science research in India. And as you know, that, Professor Mishra has already explained that recently the volume on the status of social science research in India was launched. This has really thrown light on the paucity of funding for social science research. And we very well know that India cannot really move forward by leaps and bounds only on the strength of physical sciences and natural sciences. And it is becoming so very important for social scientists and humanities research to also take a place in the center stage, because issues really are about people. It is all about people-centric development. If people are not happy, the country cannot really move forward. Very recently, in fact, the last week, in fact, has thrown light on the various indicators, not only the happiness index, in which India comes a very, very low 117th position. Even in terms of our human development ranking, we have slipped by 1 position to 131 out of 188 countries. And that's not really a happy kind of a scenario. We cannot really move forward in terms of holistic development, in terms of sustainable development, which is the real theme of this Congress, which very rightly the regional center, Southern Regional Center and IPE, who really need to be congratulated for taking forward this issue of sustainable development. India cannot move forward by leaving its Bharat behind. So we really need to take the issues of sustainable development much more seriously. Our resources are limited. We have to make the most of them. And we have to make sure that we do not let our younger generations sort of work in an atmosphere which is polluted, drink water that is contaminated. So it is the responsibility of the current generation to focus on issues of sustainable development, of gender equality, gender empowerment, rural development. And in Telangana itself, we have seen how there are issues of rural development, and I believe now the government is giving a lot of importance to organic farming, because a lot of lessons have been learned from the Punjab crisis, where we have extreme problems related to too much over-exploitation of land resources as a result of the Green Revolution, and we're going back to rain-fed farming. And of course, Professor Deshpande is our real teacher on agricultural issues, and I'm sure he will throw a lot of light on these real issues. So just coming to the importance of sustainable development and congratulating this Congress for having envisioned this brilliant theme. We are also at ICSSR jointly collaborating with more than 10 European countries, and we are going to very soon be announcing a pilot call for which ICSSR has committed substantial funding. again to look into issues in the coming years around the issue of equity, around the issue of well-being, around the issue of public health. And we all understand now, and I think all state human development reports at the national level also have underlined the importance of increasing our allocation, our budgetary allocations for health and education, because it is really on the foundations of building our health and education systems that we can really move forward, and we can really move from the MDGs, so to say, to making some achievement in the SDGs, that is the Sustainable Development Goals. So with these words, I'm really very pleased, I'm very honored to be here, and I really congratulate the organizers for really bringing out very, very cogent, very, very relevant themes for discussion in the coming 2 days. And once again, thank you very much, Professor Mishra.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Mohandas Manandhar is an advisor to the DRAN on Nepal. He is a policy expert in the area of inclusive development, development management, organizational development, and social inclusion. Dr. Manandhar was the policy advisor to Nepalese National Inclusion Commission at the Prime Minister's Office, Government of Nepal. Having designed a research program on social inclusion in Nepal, he helped in establishing the Norwegian Fund on Social Inclusive Research Fund in 2008, where he worked as a senior advisor for policy and institutionalization. We are extremely delighted to have you, sir. I request sir to share his thoughts on the social science research initiatives in the Asian region. Sir would be making a presentation.
Honorary delegates at the dais, delegates and participants, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to be here by the invitation of IPE, and especially thanks to Professor Mishra to provide me this opportunity to talk about issues of public policy and better life in terms of social sciences. The PowerPoint presentation is very small, and there will be only 4 of it, so I'll be speaking each of it on the context of why social science research is needed in terms of making sure that our lives becomes better. One of the issues that we always look at is the issue of why social science research is. And generally speaking, most of us here are academicians, so I would accept that most of us would want to focus only on generation of knowledge. And we know it's not for now, or it's not for only for 5 years. We would want to generate knowledge that changes the human civilization. That's what we would aspire for. So it's not necessarily short term, it's quite long term, and it's necessarily the knowledge that would provide the whole human society to progress forward. So most of us would use this as a way of our own perception, conceptions whatsoever, to focus on research on issues that is related to society at large. However, one of the interesting aspects that we have observed during, as already suggested, during the creation of social science, social inclusion research fund, is that what happens once you have done research, once you have put in the paper, in journals, in books, what happens then? Interestingly, if you look at the state, if you look at people's lives, except for very intimate relationships, all other relationships in the family space, in the social space, or in the international space is actually influenced by state that we are in. Interestingly, right? But we do not see how it can actually influence our lives. We see this as a policy of a state as a very far away and an instrument that is done, managed by either a political leaders or a bureaucrat in the government. Very interestingly, that we do not realize the impact of policies in our lives, be it using the biotechnology in sort of a production of our rice, be it be having a private nursing home, or be it be cigarettes that you use, or a campaign in terms of access to education for poor. You look at it, each of these instruments, each of these decisions matters to us, and therefore policy matters to us. So today I'm basically speaking on the public policy. How do we make it better with the use of social science research? As already suggested by her, that most of the policy is, of course, takes and research done in terms of natural sciences, life sciences, but less of the social science research is taken into account during the formulation, implementation, and evaluation of policies that happens. But what is public policy? So that's how I will be shifting towards public policy more, and I would want to see how do we sort of make sure that public policy becomes part of a discourse that we operate every day, like a political sort of a rhetoric that we do all the time in the tea shops, in the restaurants that we go in the campuses. We always talk about politics of life, always talks about philosophy of life, but we do not talk about something that actually influences us. That is public policy, especially in the academic field. Public policy as a process or an instrument is used by the state to address either a demands, which is aggregates of a citizen's voice, or their problems, whether it's a human made or a natural made disasters, or let's say or medical waste that is taken by hospital, or whether it is basically a car that needs to run in the road. How big needs to be road? With the problem that we just saw, we've been facing is of issues of where do this metro takes into? Does it hide our heritage, or does it help us in terms of movement? So it's quite interesting to see how it addresses issues of our problems. One of the major significant issues that it addresses is of a service provided by the government: education, health, security, and other services that we actually are provisioned in a constitution in each of the countries around us. Not only that, it also influences the way the public goods are produced, including learning in the colleges. So that is a public good. It can be produced by a private enterprise, or it can be produced by a public enterprise or a community enterprise, but it has to have some kind of a co-production between an institute and a citizen it works with, or a grievances of a citizens that comes in with the social groups together. In the process of moving towards addressing issues of conflict in Nepal, we found that one of the issues that comes around because of the root cause of conflict was injustice. We tried to structure it in a way that would be sort of understandable by the state. And we said injustice is a very huge issue. So we said exclusion would be the one. So we said, okay, let's address issues of exclusion, because that is where we're facing conflict and breakdown of state. So we thought it would be useful to finance or fund to a social scientist in across Nepal and outside to actually study the complexities of society in Nepal. Not only citizens, not only individuals, but social groups included, groups that are excluded, groups that are not seen in the political space. So to seek how it is sort of germinating injustice, perception of injustice included, and which actually surface the conflict which causes our security breach, our difficulties in terms of movements, livelihood, and etc. So we thought that would be useful. So I was part of the design of this fund, and we created a fund, provided funds, fellowships, scholarships to most of the academicians. But at the end of a day, the question was, once they have done a research, what next? That's the question that was quite important to us. One of the issues that we saw in our politics is that if you would want a decision maker to understand and take on your issues, you need to have a social mobilization of the people. How do we do that in academic area? That was what we were facing. I'll come back to this question as we move on. So, basic idea of public policy. So, the idea is that public policy should be people-centric. One, for that, we need to have a theoretical base. Of course, we need to have a clarity of objectives, basically an agenda that is defined by politics of a country or a social movements. The objective can be changed accordingly, but the idea is that the policy needs to have very clarity of objective. Of course, there is a structural way of defining public policy because it does include the use of resources. So therefore, it has to be very logical. It cannot just be hearsay or a philosophical thought. It has to be solution-oriented, and it does need logical framing. But in this all frame, one of the most important aspects for longer-term influence is about theoretical base. If that is not there, then it becomes only an issue of use or misuse by either a political masters or an elitist who would want to extract benefits from the state's resources. So this theoretical base is where the social science research comes in. Either it would be a psychology to anthropology to a medical anthropology to economics to political theory. It has to have some kind of a base that defines four aspects of policies. One, especially because it deals with resources and everyone is interested in resource growth, that is efficiency. How efficient it should be. And of course, just opposite that, even if it's very efficient, the problem is that the resources may not be distributed equitably. So we have seen across our South Asia and other countries, the inequity that prevails. And that equity means fairness, that equity means justice. The third issue is simply liberty. How do we define liberty? And all this policy needs to anchor in value proposition on the basis of liberty and freedom. The last one is security. And we know human security, food security, water security is important implications of how we move forward. So all of these value propositions are very important in terms of theoretical base. Otherwise, of course, each of these has a contentious philosophies behind it. You can talk about fairness or justice. It's a very different philosophies across the world. You can see it. It has not only one school of thought, there's many school of thought that may or may not be able to define what justice is or what fairness is. If we look at policy as an instrument, a key to one of our life's betterment, then we need to also understand how policy is made. If you look at a context of South Asia, you can see the autocratic rule prior to 16,000, and we know what does that mean. We know how it provides states intervention and these policies. No? We know we have had British colony, except for Nepal and Afghanistan, but they were ruled by monarch and some princely states. After post-war to 1990, we did have independence, but the economy was closed in most of these Saudi Asian countries. We have emergencies, we have military rules, we have monarchy in substantial periods during that time. After post-1990, there was an open economy, and of course, there was an initiation of policy evaluation in some countries. And that provides us what kind of a tax system that we are defining, what kind of a service delivery that we are providing. Do I have a right to go and demand for, or do I just need to be very subservient or subordinate to people who I pay tax to, or government officials? So what is the policy underlying our process of, let's say, for example, smoking in public or not? All these has come about doing a policy evaluation, and as authoritarian or as a monarchy system does, they are not accountable to people. They are accountable to either a god or to a higher state, right? Which is very philosophical. And then, therefore, their words becomes not necessarily to be evaluated, because that is a contestation, that the challenge that is not accepted by the authoritarian state. Therefore, no evaluation has happened in policies. The program evaluations have happened. There are activities that project evaluations has happened, but policy evaluation is a difficult issue because it has a value proposition. We are challenging that values. And of course, one value system changes the whole lives of our people. We have seen across always. So that is where we are coming back. So one of the aspects of policy making, therefore, is an issue of who makes policy. Therefore, I would want to just show a small, the first one would be, just wait, just slowly. So the first one would be a political party. We believe that they actually have a mandate because they are elected. Therefore, they do policies because they also suggest already in the mandate that when they go into election. The second one is civil servants, purely because they have a knowledge, they have a practice, they control resources, and they are at the hub of policy making, bureaucrats. The third are individual advisors, us, not as an institution in South Asia, but as an individual academic experts providing services. I, partly, Professor Mishra as part of it, being advisor to Prime Minister's office or in National Planning Commission, as an individual expert, not as an institution. I mean, if IPE sends a statement tomorrow saying that, okay, this metro needs to be done within 3 months, will the government of this state listens to them? If individual says it's probably true, but does IPE has that strength, or any institution in this state has that strength to speak publicly and then challenge the government? Very difficult. But individual-wise, academically, we are stronger in terms of providing advice in a policy. Of course, foreign forces, donors, other developing agencies that do influence because they do provide resources. And associations, either it's a labor union or association of teachers, they do influence. The last one, which is quite interesting that we were looking at, is, go ahead, research and academic institutions. It should have been in a center because that's where the knowledge is. That is where we can actually find how the policy is operating and how can we make policies better for people, right? Because academicians are one who can go to the most remotest place, the most difficult people to ask for what does it makes them happy, as happiness is if one of the indicator. But it seems that academic research is not being taken as a central stage. And that's probably where we need to look at and look forward. One of the issues that we suffer, so I come back to the first issue of social mobilization, is that how do we mobilize knowledge then? Because one of the, as bureaucrats would sort of make policies and they do not, and the article at the Social Science Research which has been published by published, as you suggested in January 6th, suggest that all of the committees that makes policies and national plans, all their chairpersons are not academicians. 1.3% of them are academicians, right? It's quite surprising to see, no? 40% of them are from former bureaucrats. 40% of them are individual consultants. Only 13% are research-oriented researchers. That's something. So if the researchers are not there to provide, information and research evidence, how come policies will be better? And that's the question that, as an academicians, we are asking. However, it's very clear, as I suggested, social inclusion is a very political agenda in Nepal at that point of time, with the absolute monarch in managing the country. So the idea was, how do we mobilize academicians to make sure that it influences the policies that we are making? So one of the issues that we brought in, I designed, is an issue of how do we make policies or research that has happened in social inclusion research one to have a discourse in a public forum, public places. Not only forum, but really public spaces. How do we bring in? So the idea was very simple, two areas. One, that the research needs to be briefed in a way that is understood by a common people. And it's very difficult for academicians to do so. Given the methodology, given very strong methodology that we are using, we would not want to change any words. But unfortunately, nobody understands it. What can we do? So what we did was to bring in the journalist who can actually articulate the whole 200 pages of research in one page. It was difficult, but we brought in editors, journals who did that, and we published in the newspaper. And after 3 days, we then went back to FM radios and television to discuss the same article. So it's in written, printed, so it takes 3-4 days to talk about, and then start discussing in the new media. Now, we use the social media a lot in terms of discussions. So this is one form of public discourse that we would want to have. But that is just a dissemination aspect of it. The more important aspect is how academics, policy experts, especially the government bureaucrats, have a dialogue. How can we have that dialogue? Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Because the central driver are bureaucrats, and they do have years of practices that they know what can be implemented very clearly. But academics needs to understand that they know the practice, we know the knowledge. How can it be bridged together? And it's quite interesting to see. It's difficult because they would not understand. They are in a power side, so they may or they may not take whatever you provide. Because there are hundreds of agencies that are coming with an evidence saying, oh, we need to do this. It's contested, it's different, and nobody can say which one is quality-wise or which one is correct or standard, no? So the issue for the bureaucrats is also difficult because they need to filter the information from it. So with that filter, it becomes a barrier, the discourse that does not happen. What I did was to make sure that we incentivize most of the provided funds, most of the professors from the university who happens to be advisors to the political party. That said, I mean, I'm not saying that they are the only one that we did. Of course, we had all the young researchers, young meaning not necessarily by age, others, meaning understanding a new paradigms that brings in. So this combination of the advisors who had influence and the ideas that is bringing in by the new thought process was combined to have a discussion with the public officials in a open forum. Because there's two aspects to it. One was both of them, academicians and the bureaucrats, were not accountable to citizens. If citizens ask questions, they would say, forget about it. Both, right? It's quite interesting to see how they needed to be accountable to. It's difficult actually. In both cases, they think they have earned it, they have done it, so therefore there's no questions of accountability. But that's the question that I'm bringing in. This discourse part is quite tricky in terms of contestation, and of course tricky in terms of challenge, and it needs to be structured so that there's no fights in terms of emotional ways. So you bring in both the bureaucrats and the academicians together in front of a public, and that's difficult. That happens either in TV, it's only a rhetoric, but it has to be a very small group where the discussion needs to happen. And that's how we were able to influence policies. Most of the states' policies were changed to make it inclusive. And I think the whole idea of academic discourse needs to make sure that it influences the way that works in the policy making. That would be the one way by which the idea of mobilization of knowledge happens. Not only dissemination for the public, of course that is required to have a political pressure into it, but it's also required to make sure that there is a dialogue, there is a discourse that happens. So I'm going beyond dialogue, I'm proposing here that the academic discourse needs to happen, not of a policy discourse only, but of a social discourse, social science discourse, academic one, to influence policy makers, not only of bureaucrats, but of political leaders, of civil society leaders, and citizens at large. So this, therefore, needs to be created in a mechanism by way which the language needs to be different, because it needs to change from being a very scientific journal to a common person's understanding language, which is difficult, and that is not necessarily an academic's work. That needs to come in, therefore the media needs to come in. And the second issue is about which media that you are using, not only in terms of print media or a sort of a television, etc., but the discourse can be through other means, especially in terms of social media and others. That creates a language, a narrative that changes the way that we live. I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Dr. Manandar has highlighted on the public policy for better life, public policy framework, public policy making process in South Asia, and also the initiatives to strengthen and enhance the public policy discourse. I think they're very valuable suggestions, sir. I think the academia and the policy makers has to come together to create a platform and discuss and throw light on the public policy issues.